And we are live while driving with no tags. Why? Because StreamYard, for whatever reason, does not let me tag my video. If you can tag the videos on StreamYard, please let me know how. With that being said, let's get into this live breakdown while we're driving. Because it seems like this fight is the flavor of the week. And I don't want to oversaturate it, being that I haven't done a lot of boxing videos. And I don't want to make every video about George Kambosos and Devin Haney. So this will probably be the last one until the weigh-ins. And then the weigh-ins, I'll do the real prediction breakdown. But as I see it right now, unless my mind has changed at the weigh-ins, yes, I don't see how he can win. The only question I have is, does he get knocked out or does he survive to the 12th round? That I'm not so sure about. I don't think I was supposed to do a U-turn. I just did in front of a cop, and he did not see it. Good thing he was filling up, because that could have been a ticket. Um, situational awareness, and I had none. Anyways, moving on past that, I don't see how he can beat George Kambosos, and I'm going to explain why. His last three fights, he's, in fact, before I get into the breakdown, in case people come here to disagree with me, although I don't know if I'll get anybody being that I could not tag this video like I've done in the past. Let's do invite guests. Let's copy. Let's go here. Let's go to more. Let's go to post comment. Let's go to post the comment. We're posting a comment. There's the link. All right. The link should be in the chat. All right. So if anybody wants to jump on, they can. I agree, Tony says JD boxing. So here's what I look at. People with Devin Haney are going off his last three fights. You had a midget, and an old man. Or let's say it in chronological order. A midget, an old man, and a midget. That's what he fought. He fought Achilles tendon, literally coming off a ruptured Achilles tendon. Let's say it medically. He had a ruptured Achilles tendon, and he was coming right off of that injury to fight Devin Haney. A midget who was coming off an injury. He looked good in that fight. It went 12 rounds. He won every single round. Rightfully so. He looked good, not going to lie. And I'm going to get into some things that Kambosos said about a leaky defense that I don't really agree with. Fully. But anyways, moving on. His next fight, now, somebody tried to say on another panel that Teofimo Lopez true. That is in because Teo had to fight the window. No, I would have been more than that. It could have been 18 months. I'm not sure. But it was somewhere in between a year to a year and a half that he was out of the ring, and he was old. Now, I'm not taking anything away from Linares, but we know the older you get, the more active you have to be, or the quicker you lose it. Let me see. What does this say? I heard we're supposed to say little people, not the M word. Excuse me. I made a mistake. I made a clerical error. I made a audio error. I made a verbal error. Let me go back. Let's reverse this. Devin Haney beat a little person, an old man who was ring rusted, and a little person. There we go. There we go. Now I said it accurate. So we are now accurate. With that being said, let's move on. We're going past that, right? So he fights Linares, he beats Linares, and he pretty much beats Linares to the punch. Linares couldn't get his shots off. He was getting caught left and right. Credit to Devin Haney. Devin Haney got caught, which showed that he had a chin because he did not get knocked down. However, I don't like the way he reacted after getting hurt. To me, It's all about reaction and what happened. Some people can get knocked down like Tim Tszyu just got knocked down in his last fight, right? Flash knockdown. But what did he do? He recovered to press forward at the end of that round and then continue to win every single round after that. 11 straight rounds he dominated. He reacted well after getting dropped. However, when Devin Haney got hurt, he reacted very badly. He had no defense. He had no offense. There was a time where he just walked towards Linares with his arms open for a hug, and that's not good. He was fortunate that he was fighting a guy who was rusty. You could see the flakes falling off of him. Not just the dust from him being old, but the flakes from the rust as well. So you had two types of flakes falling off in the ring. You had old dust and old rust. So you have both those, right? If Linares would have been younger, would have been more active, he could have taken advantage of that when Devin Haney for 2 rounds was doing nothing but hugging and holding on. And that is concerning. Because when Devin gets in there with guys who are young like him, not old, who are active like him, not inactive like Linares, they're going to take advantage of that. They're going to defend yourself, and you can't put up an offense to keep them off of you. They're going to crack that chin. You can only you could have a granite chin, but it's only going to take so many hits before you get dropped if you can't do nothing to get out of harm's way. And that's what I see as an issue. Then we go to JoJo Diaz. JoJo, who is probably coming off his best win against Tevin Farmer. Now, the thing is, JoJo is a little person. I was corrected. Got to say it right. He was a little person moving up in weight, and he just showed to be the smaller guy. So here's what we have. We have 2 small guys who couldn't do anything with Devin Haney. He outboxed them, looked great. We had one old man who was close to his height, close to his stature, and he rocked him. I believe it was the 10th round, and hurt him bad. But that was really the only thing he landed on him because Devin was coming forward the whole fight. Whereas that's a mistake that people are making. People are saying that Devin Haney won't come forward like Teofimo Lopez did. However, against JoJo Diaz, JoJo and Linares, he was coming forward. He was coming forward, just like Teo was against George Kambosos. So let's not pretend like Devin won't come forward on the front foot and he won't fight like Teo did George Kambosos, because he will. He showed it in his last 2 fights. So, moving past that, let me see what you wrote, and then we'll get into it. Oh, shit, I can't read it. It's too small while I'm driving, so let me come over here. I think Haney is skilled, but his defense isn't phenomenal. For me, Haney has been dry for the last 3 fights and should have been moved up. JoJo isn't feather fist, but shouldn't have hurt him like he did. I'm going to add he did. What's going on, Grind Hard Sports? You're more than welcome to jump on the panel. The link is in the chat. But here's what I got to fall back to. Now that we talked about JoJo, I love saying that because of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. But anyways, it's an anime. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. It's great. Sus as shit, but it's good. Anyways, he just proved to be too small, kind of like Gamboa was when he moved up to fight Lomachenko. Or like Lomachenko looked too small when he got in there with Teofimo Lopez. It is what it is. But here's the thing. Here's the thing about it. When we go back 4 fights, not 3, but 4, and we look at Santiago, who just got knocked out in his last fight against a guy who wasn't even good, proved that Devin Haney struggles against guys his own stature who are young, and Santiago has decent speed. By no means is he fast. He just has the same stature, same length, similar. Not identical, but similar. When I say same, it means close to, not identical. So let me use the word similar. They had a similar stature, a similar length. He had a similar build, meaning he wasn't extremely outsized. And that's the thing about it. When Devin got in there with a guy who is sea level at best, who had the same stature as him. He was losing. I shouldn't say losing. He won the fight, but he was struggling with just the jab. Go watch the Santiago fight. The first guy who's young, around his same size, who isn't good, a sea-level fighter, made him struggle with a jab. Now, had Santiago been a skilled fighter who could put combinations together, who could bring the straight behind the jab, who could hide the uppercuts when closing the distance with the jab, it would have been a completely different fight. A guy who was targeting it up and down at the same time, confusing him with looks, but he wasn't. He was a guy who was just jabbing to the head and gave Devin issues for days. It was a close fight. Devin didn't dominate that fight. It was close. Devin won. I give him it, but it was close. And now, here we are, Alvarez, who hadn't been fighting, who's just hadn't been fighting, and then a JoJo Diaz moving up, granted, coming off his best win in his career, in my opinion, but moving up still the little man. And I'm to believe that when he gets in there with the first guy that's going to be his same stature again, who's going to have very close, if not faster hands, very close, if not faster feet, and a hell of a lot more technical than Santiago, and I'm to believe that Devin Haney is going to beat this guy, I can't. It's too early for Devin Haney. If Devin Haney would have been fighting Teofimo Lopez, this would be a different discussion. I think because he's the bigger man, the longer man, he had a very good shot at being Teofimo Lopez. But the difference in between Kambosos and Devin is minimal. It's minimal. Very minimal. And Kambosos, like I said, is better than Santiago in everything. Everything, whether it be the jab, the straight, the body work, the combinations, the movement, the agility, the speed, the IQ, etc. And Devin struggled with Santiago, who got knocked out in his last fight. He's only had 2 fights since losing to Devin Haney. He beat a bum, don't remember the name, and I don't remember the name of the guy who knocked him the fuck out. That's it. That's all he's done because he was never good, sea-level at best. And people could say that Kambosos isn't good, but then yet I could say Kambosos' last 3 fights was against the man of the division, because you have to say Teofimo Lopez was the man, because he beat the man. Everybody considered Lomachenko the man of the division. Teo beat him. Teo got beat by Kambosos, so he beat the man of the division. Then after that, like Devin, he fought an ex-world champion who moved up, Shelby, beat him, and he beat Bay, who was an ex-champion. So he's fought 3 champions back-to-back. I think the experience is going to be on George Kambosos' side, and I just think because they're so close in speed. Let me read the comments before I go deeper with what I'm saying right here about them being close in speed. It's difficult for me to think Haney can win. Not impossible, but I just don't trust it. Kambosos is going to beat that, bro. Boy. Yo, Devin got so mad when he got called a kid. If I was Kambosos, I'd call him a kid in the ring while I'm fighting him, just to get him angry, just to make him make mistakes off the anger, just to make him come more aggressive. I'd call him a kid all night long. Whenever the bell rings in between rounds, before we walk to our corner, I call him a kid again. I'd be like, you're just a kid. You're a kid, because I want him to play into my strengths. I want you to come for me. I want you to show me that you're a man. Psychological warfare. But again, they're so close in speed, at least visually. We won't really know till they get in there. But visually, they're so close in speed that it's going to be very hard for Devin Haney to do what he's been doing against Kambosos. And the thing is, unfortunately, you don't have to have power in boxing. Power is the most overrated thing in boxing. If all you have is power, eventually skill can beat that power. Eventually, you may fight somebody who can take your power, and if you're not left with anything else, you get beat. You have to have more than power. Power is not everything. I wanted to do that disclaimer before I say this. However, When you were born with two bunny paws, you got to be well beyond the limits of somebody you're fighting. And there's no way somebody's going to tell me that Devin Haney technically is way more skilled than George Kambosos. I just don't believe it. Could he be a little more technical than Kambosos? Is a possibility. Yes, it is. Could he be slightly better than Kambosos boxing ability-wise? Possibly. Could his IQ slightly be higher? Yes, but here's the problem. That slight is not going to make the difference when the attributes are damn near equal, and we know in the power department Kambosos is way greater than. That's not going to make the difference. See, it's like if you're small. Let's say you're a small man wrestling a big man, right? Here's what people don't understand. You could be a guy, say 150 pounds, who's stronger than a guy 200 pounds, just to keep it simple, right? You could be a 150-pound man stronger than a 200-pound man. But you have to be stronger than that 200-pound man by at least 50 pounds in every exercise because he has 50 pounds of weight on you. So everything you do as a 150-pound man to be stronger than that 200-pound man, if y'all are wrestling, it has to be by plus 50 pounds because you're already in a deficit by 50 pounds. Whether it be the deadlift, the squat, the bench, etc. You got to be 50 pounds stronger. That's just what it is because you're at a disadvantage when it comes to weight. So when it comes to skill versus natural attributes, your skill has to be greater than their natural attributes for your skills to be better. It's like, for instance, Floyd Mayweather Jr. He fought a lot of guys, especially as he aged, who may have been faster than him, but it didn't matter because his technical ability, his timing, his placement of his feet, knowing where to be, when to be, where not to be, when not to be, was so much greater than the guys that he was fighting that his technical abilities outweighed their natural attributes. It was just greater than. So he nullified where he was disadvantaged by his greatness and skills. When your skills are not that much greater than the person you're fighting and their natural attributes are way better than yours, you're at an extreme disadvantage. And that's the thing about it. Haney is faster in terms of speed. Kambosos is very explosive. Yeah, but here's the thing about it. Explosion, quickness is more important than being fast because you're in an enclosed space. So, in other words, a 40-yard dash time is better in a boxing ring than a 100-yard dash time because you're in a confined small space. So you want to be more explosive with your speed than actual fast. You can be fast on your feet all day, but how quickly can you get up to maximum speed? That's the most important in a boxing ring. How quickly can you close the gap or separate from somebody? How quickly can you get a punch off and get out of the way of a punch? Quickness is greater than speed when the space becomes little. So I would say being more explosive is better than being faster in terms of boxing. You want that fast twitch, that whop, whop. You don't see it coming. Come on, dude. You ain't got no blinker. You ain't said thank you. You're lucky I'm on camera. Anyways, I mean that in a way of giving Kambosos the edge. Kambosos looked faster. Like I said, Iceman, we don't truly know who's faster until we see them in the ring with each other. They both look fast, but we don't know who's faster. What I can say is I believe that Kambosos, when he lets his hands go, is much quicker. I believe Kambosos changed combinations together much quicker than Devin Haney can. And that's the thing about it. To me, I don't really see Devin Haney as a true combination puncher, especially inside of the pocket. Kambosos, when he was fighting Teofimo Lopez, he got tagged. He got hurt, and he had to prove that he was better, and he was letting his hands go. Smart how he was doing it. He wasn't being reckless with doing it, but he would trade with Teo in the pocket. And his hand speed and them combinations is way faster than what I've seen from Devin Haney. Again, the one advantage that I could give Devin Haney, which is speed, like you said, JD Boxing, I don't know if he's actually faster. I don't know if it's enough to make a difference. I think Kambosos has a better understanding of switching from offense to defense. I definitely agree with that. That's how Devin Haney got caught against Linares, because when he's attacking, he's not as defensively sound. Whenever Devin Haney is evading, he's not as offensively sound. It's like with Floyd Mayweather Jr., we'll go back to him because defensive genius. Floyd Mayweather was a moving wall that could hit you. All right? You couldn't get around it. It's going to hit you. Whereas Devin Haney, he's a wall that you may not get through, but it doesn't attack back. Or he's attacking you, and his defense is very limited. That's another thing that made Mayweather so good. He was just a defensive wall that could throw bricks at you, which a wall shouldn't be able to do, but he could. And I agree with that. I don't think Devin is very good at switching on and off. I think he's one-track minded when he's doing one, but he's decent when he does it. But his offense can get him in trouble because he's not as defensively sound when attacking. And like I said, when he goes defensive, he's really not that offensively sound. Yes, he could throw counter punches, but they're single shots. They're few and far in between when he's really on the back foot. He's not like, say, a Shakur Stevenson, who's young like him. Shakur can be backing up and hit you 10 times while he's moving away from you. Haney, he's going to back up, wait for you to throw a punch, and he's going to try to hit you, and then he's going to move when he's fighting on the back foot. He's not as offensively sound when he's defensive. And like I said, when he's offensive and he's letting his hands go, it's like he loses track of his defense. So I agree with that 100%, JD Boxing. It's like when Haney is trying to attack, but his defensive minding making him throw himself off balance. And being off balance gets you dropped too, whether you're hurt or not. But again, I know people are going to disagree, and we're going to see this fight June 5th. But in my mind, I don't see any avenues of success for Devin Haney. I've seen him in there with a guy who was C-level at best, of the same stature, and he did not do well. He did not do well at all. He got the win, but he did not look good getting the win. And the guy that he got the win against that was the same stature as him again was a C-level fighter in Santiago. And he has not fought a guy his same size, with any type of speed, with any type of range, since Santiago, especially with them being younger. I don't count Linares because he was ring rusting and old as shit. I don't care. The thing about it is this. What people don't understand about age in boxing is the lighter you get, the more age affects you. The lighter you get, the more age affects you. Meaning that you can see guys at cruiserweight, heavyweight, they can stay till they're later in their 40s. But when you start getting to the lighter weights, age is not a good thing, because the smaller guys are much faster than the heavyweights, much quicker, and they rely on that speed to do everything. So when you get older, the first thing you lose is speed. Thus why you don't see, now there are special guys like Chocolatito, Manny Pacquiao, Floyd Mayweather, etc. I could go on. There are special guys throughout the generations who have been able to overcome age, but the norm, the normality, what you look at, you don't look at the extreme, you look at what's normal. And the older you get at the lighter weight classes, you don't tend to see them hanging around. You don't tend to see them like you do in the heavier weight classes, because again, speed's the first thing you lose, and that's what you need when you're small. You need the speed because everybody's fast. Even the slow guys are fast when compared to the bigger men. You know what I'm saying? There's nobody truly small at the lightweight classes. They're all fast. It's just how much faster they are than each other. But they're all fast. And when you lose that quickness, when you lose that speed, then you start to lose at the lighter weight classes. So I don't really consider Linares up there. Let me see. Linares just got starched by the Luviv, who Haney beat before as well. All that told me that Linares declined further. We know Linares is declined. He didn't. When he fought Devin Haney, he couldn't even let his hands go. That tells you everything you need to know. Like, I'm not saying a prime Linares would have beat a prime Haney, and I'm not saying I'm not saying Haney's in his prime yet. Okay, I'm not saying that he's in his prime yet because he's still young. Haney probably won't hit his prime till he's 28, 30 years old. That's going to be his prime years, maybe up to 32 years old, and then after that, it's going to be kind of a decline. So Haney's not in his prime, and I'm not saying a prime Linares could ever beat a prime Haney, but what I'm saying is a prime Linares would have let his hands go more. He wouldn't have been beat to the punch every single punch. It wouldn't have looked the same had it been a prime Linares. That's all. I'm not making excuses for him. I still think Linares loses, but it would have been way more competitive than what we saw. Because what we saw was a Linares that was just a punching bag for majority of the fight. Really, outside of one round, he was a punching bag. In that one round that he hurt Haney in, he was still a punching bag and got lucky and caught him. So, again, when I look at everything, when I look at the fights that I've watched with George Kambosos, all the ones that are available on YouTube, he's actually got his own YouTube channel where you can see the old fights. I want to say it's off the top of my mind, Team Ferocious or something like that. I don't know. I'm sub to it. Look at my channels. Everything I'm sub to is in my channels. When you watch his old fights, I don't see where all this confidence in Devin Haney is coming from. Styles make fights, and to me, at this moment, George Kambosos is a horrible matchup for Devin Haney. It's just a horrible matchup, and I don't think he has the experience. I don't think he has the experience to deal with a guy like George Kambosos. I asked this before, and I'm going to ask it again. When has Devin Haney ever fought a guy like George Kambosos? Because George Kambosos has fought guys not the same, but similar to Devin Haney to prepare him for this. But when I think about it, Devin's never been in the ring with a guy like George Kambosos, of similar stature, of similar speed, who hits a lot harder. Devin's never had that in his entire career. This is going to be alien to him. The amount of times he's going to be hit in this fight, he's not going to be used to. He's just used to being the faster, better boxer. He's never fought a guy similar to him on the same level. And that's the thing about it. I don't think he has the experience to deal with George Kambosos. If it was 6 years from now and Devin Haney was up there in between 28 to 32 years old, maybe it's a different story depending on how he develops as he gets older. But I just think at this point in time, he just doesn't have the experience. And he's never been in there with anybody like this. He's never seen it. And people could say, well, he spars with Mayweather, he spars with Rolly, he fought Ryan, and it's not going to fucking matter. It's not going to fucking matter. None of that matters. Sparring and fighting are two different things. They're not the same. They have never been the same. I've been to gyms and I've seen fights break out over sparring, and normally when real fights break out over sparring, the sparring stopped immediately. People jump in, they separate. Sparring is not the same as having smaller gloves, no headgear, and you trying to actually knock the other person out. It's just not the same. It's a different mentality when you're sparring and you're fighting. And like I said, and if you get into that mentality of it being a real fight, a lot of the times that shit gets stopped. The minute it gets chaotic, out of control, they stop it. Because they don't want the guys who are sparring to get injured. Because then if they get injured sparring, they can't fight. So it's just, like I said, I don't see any avenues of success for Devin Haney in this fight. I don't think he's ever been in there with anybody like George Kambosos. I think all the people who are doubting George Kambosos are foolish to do that because Kambosos just beat the man of the division. I don't see how you could still doubt somebody who beat the guy that most of these people said he couldn't beat. That's what's so funny about it. George just beat the man that 98% of the boxing community, maybe 99% of the boxing community said he could not beat. And he didn't just beat him, he beat that ass. He beat that ass. It's not like it was a close fight. It wasn't. George easily won that fight. Like, he beat the shit out of T.O. And people were saying that he stood no chance. And he beat the shit out of him. And those same people are trying to say that Kambosos stands no chance against Devin Haney. And it's just, I don't understand it. I don't get it. Doesn't make sense. But I'm about to jump off this live. I just got to the location I'm going to. This was just my quick little rant. Watching everybody on the road kind of had me stuttering and stumbling on some words, but that's okay. Let me read this, and then we're going to get off. Lenara's just got, yeah, I already read that. For me, it's just timing, and the timing is all in how he can't make weight healthy anymore. Right. Who is about to fight at 139, not 135. Kids outgrown weight. Well, I won't say that Devin's outgrown the weight class because until he misses weight or until he looks worse than he did before making the weight, then he can still fight at the weight. You can tell when somebody's outgrown the weight class when that next fight, after the weigh-ins, they look really bad. They don't look the same. And I don't think Devin Haney's hit that yet. And plus, the younger you are, the easier it is to lose weight and rehydrate to whatever your natural weight is. I believe Mauricio said that Bill said that Devin walks around at 155. So, I mean, it's about a 20-pound drop. That's reasonable. That's reasonable. That's not cutting too much weight, 20 pounds. Now, eventually, Haney will be too big for 135, and it'll be at 140 and so on. But at the moment, I haven't seen him get in the ring and look bad because of the weigh-in. So until that time, I can't really say that he's too big for the weight class. But on that note, let me get off. Appreciate y'all hanging out with me. Thank you, JD. Thank you, Regulator. Thank you, Iceman. Vortex. Did I miss anybody? I don't know. I can't scroll up anymore. If I miss anybody, my bad. Y'all have a good day, and I'll try to go live again, but it may be on a video game. I'm out.